Revision, Articles 7, 8, and 9, starting with please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I make a motion to open the floor to public comments. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I have a statement first. I want to start with my statement and anything the board would like to say, and then we'll open up. I apologize for the way I speak, and this is kind of long, but I think it's important that I say. So there are a lot of people here tonight to discuss Six Senses, and which is scheduled to be considered by the Town Planning Board. There has been much activity on social media and emails that are not disseminating accurate information, in my opinion. I feel that there are valid opinions about this project, and there are, but accurate information should be provided to all residents. So this town board approved a resolution in March that discontinued litigation commenced by CECNY to set aside a determination issued by the Hyde Park zoning administrator. It is incorrect to believe that this resolution nullified the decision of the Town of Clinton ZBA. The ZBA decision of June 4, 2024 contained a condition. The CCNY project could not move forward to planning board review unless or until Hyde Park denials were reversed under a non-appealable decision. By approving this resolution, the Clinton Town Board said in its judgment that the ZBA conditions have been met. If anything, the Town Board's approval of this resolution supports the autonomy and decision-making process of our ZBA. The zoning revision process, which is why we're here tonight, resulted from a comprehensive plan that was approved in 2012. A town is required to revise its zoning code after a comprehensive plan. However, this process has taken about 12 years, which is much longer than anticipated. Of course, that belies the accusation that this town board is attempting to fast-track these zoning changes. I would note that over these years, many people have been involved with the revision, multiple town board members, planning board, ZBA members, at least 2 engineers, and many residents who have attended our multiple workshops throughout the years. During this process, most of those opposing the current project did not attend those workshops. A recent email contains an opinion that this zoning revision will allow clear cutting of trees throughout the town, including the ridgeline protection overlay area that the Six Sense project would be located in. The revision to our zoning code states, quote, "In the ridgeline protection area, the maximum area permitted to be clear cut shall be no more than 75 feet in extent from the outer edge of the primary structure's footprint. During construction and installation of facilities and structures, only the minimum amount of existing vegetation may be cleared, unquote. This wording has been reviewed by the town board, multiple members of the public, our town attorney, and the assertion that this town board is allowing clear cutting feels like an outright lie, generating emotions about this project. However, I also believe that our neighbors would not resort to lies for this purpose. So I'm just chalking it up to misinformation. So the conference center law was amended in 2021. The changes tightened up that legislation tremendously. It was also handled separately from the zoning revision process due to the fact that it was more pressing and needed to be done sooner than the end of this process. Common Sense's Hudson Valley keeps claiming that the conference center law contains loopholes. I feel like this term is simply used to stir up emotions. And while that law may have some provisions that need to be fixed, these are not loopholes, and it is irresponsible to suggest otherwise. A recent email also called every member of this town board Vladimir Putins. I would like to remind our residents that we're all neighbors. We're allowed and even encouraged to have differing opinions, but calling people's names is unacceptable and shameful, and it needs to end now. At this public hearing, we're here to discuss the revision to the zoning code, except for definitions. They'll be discussed at the July meeting. A new law is also being worked on to tighten up hotels, inns, conference centers. A group that came together has pointed out that hotels and conference centers were never included in the zoning revision. And those laws need some looking at, and we know that. And they're being looked at separately. So tonight's public hearing is in regard to the zoning revision we've been working on for 12 years. And I would like to give priority to those who have comments regarding that process. The hearing should not be taken over by one issue. And the proper place to discuss those concerns would be during the public hearing that the planning board is will have when it considers the application for the Sixth Sense project. Sorry, Paul. So that is my comments. I would open it up to anyone on our town board first.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that very much.
I would just add to elaborate on one of your comments there that we are, in fact, working on a new law that will, if it passes by the board, it will incorporate hotels, motels, inns, and what are now called conference centers into one set of regulations. Because right now it's confusing. There are 4 different sets of regulations. Sometimes they contradict each other, other times they don't. So we will put those all together. One of the likely outcomes will be to simply not have conference centers anymore. That's an issue on the table. Stop. We will have hotels, we will have motels, country inns of some level or another. Conference inn is a very confusing concept that nobody seems to understand or be able to work with. The other important issue, and there will be a number of other issues too, but just listing the important ones. there's a very legitimate concern about where these activities or where these venues will be located. At the moment, and this goes back to 1992, when our current zoning law was passed, hotels, for example, are limited to hamlets. I think we all agree that's a bad idea. So the plan is, or hopefully is, to limit these events, these centers, or whatever you want to call them, these locations, to 5-acre zones. So they will not be allowed in hamlets, which is a major concern that people are expressing, legitimate concern. And also likely, I hope, to have limit access to these venues from either a state or county road, as opposed to a town road. Anyway, these are just some of the issues that are being discussed. My hope is that within the next month or two, we will have a draft that people can look at, they can comment on. Will be up for public hearing. The public can come, comment, critique it, pick it apart, what have you. Hopefully, if all goes well, we'll have something on the books within a few months. Okay. So some of the concerns you're raising are actually reflected, or will be reflected, in the revision that we're undertaking, as opposed to what we're talking about tonight. There's a nuance here, but it's an important one.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna call Cynthia first, because she has something separate from why I assume most are here.
Thank you, Michael. I'm Cynthia Cook. I live on Willow Lane. I'm also the president of the Historical Society. And but as a private citizen interested in historic preservation, I have very small comments on the historic preservation, historic district and landmark protections, which is part of the zoning revision that I understand was discussed and reviewed last time, and I wasn't aware of it, but I understand this is an open meeting,
Cynthia?
so I can,
What's that?
Your mic may not
Talk
be.
into the mic or check.
I'm not, oh, sorry. I
Is
should
the
be talking to you.
microphone on, Brandon? All right, all right.
Does it
We-
sound like?
Yeah, it
it's-
doesn't sound like it. Okay, please
But it doesn't seem to
project.
be working.
Is it working?
Probably not.
Well,
All right,
Speak up.
I'll
Cynthia.
speak up.
all right, thank you.
But anyway, this is comments on historic district and landmark protection, paragraph 250-55. And I looked back at the workshop minutes and the version that came out of the workshop, compared it to what's being considered right now, and found a minor discrepancy that I'd like to bring to your attention, because this, what came out of the workshop should be in the materials you're looking at. And that is that in the workshop, the word property lines replaced the words properties. And this was under standards, paragraph 1. So property lines is better. It's more specific than just the general word property. So I think that's a good improvement that should be included in the final document. While I was at it, I looked at a paragraph which listed the entities that could bring a designation to the petition for designation of a historic district. And it says, the petition for designation of a historic district or landmark shall be submitted to the town board by the planning board, conservation advisory committee, local historical group, or interested town residents. I would ask you to please, since that was please put the Town of Clinton Historical Society in there instead of local historical group. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. We're here to stay, okay? I think that's really, the only other thing I noticed in rereading this is that there's no mention of designation of a local landmark or even fast-tracking the designation if the property or district is already on the state or national register. Michael said he's going to look into that. It only makes sense that we don't have to go through a lot of local decision-making if something has already been reviewed state and nationally. I should think we could fast-track that. So that's all I have to say, and I thank you for giving me the time on this important evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Also, I want to let people know, I have issues writing fast, so there is a video. So if you don't see me writing what you're saying, it's not that I'm not paying attention. I'm gonna watch a video. So the floor is open. Yeah. Please use your, say your name and.
My name is Mike Berlin. I've had a house on Schoolhouse Road since 1998. I'm a neighbor of Tom and Carol. And this is the first time I've come to a meeting because in general the town's been really well run, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate the rural nature of the town. I would like to encourage the board to take the conference center language, to strike it in this revision, and then if you need to go back and fix the whole hotel conference center language, you can do it at a later date. But by taking that conference center language out now, you can stop Six Senses in its tracks, because they have not broken ground, and we can put this whole thing to bed. And that's all I have.
What, can we, I just have, so maybe we can discuss timeline? Because I understand your thought process, but I feel that this current revision and the revision of it, it's probably gonna it may possibly all come to fruition at the same moment. So that's just for the record.
I mean, one of the questions we will have to resolve when the time comes is whether a revision of the kind we're talking about can be retroactive or has to be looking forward.
Right, but that's not what I was talking about.
No, I understand.
True story.
But
Yes,
that
I
is one of the issues. In fact, the gentleman who just raised it, again, I don't know if we're legally allowed to do that. That's obviously a lawyer's question.
Under state law,
So-
if the zoning changes before a project has broken ground, then it has to adhere to the new.
Okay, but can we simply strike a whole section of the zoning law and pretend it doesn't exist?
Yes, basically.
All right,
Is
okay.
there anyone? Yeah.
I'm Adam Dykesel. I've been a homeowner on Camp Drive for 30-something years. I have a question for clarification. Did you say that we are not talking about definitions in Article 8 tonight? That's going to be July?
Yes.
Because we know that definitions have not been completely gone through by our attorney. So we're letting him do that, and it'll be in July. We'll talk about
Notes
that.
are going back in my pocket because I was mostly going to speak about that, but I do have a couple of comments, one of which is to say I appreciate your comments, Mike, about being civil, maintaining civility. I've said that in public hearings before. I will say that I don't think it is really fair for you as supervisor to imply that people who have become civically engaged because there's an issue they care about are now speaking up when they weren't aware of workshops 5 years ago. That's not really fair or civil either, and I think that that's something that we
Yeah.
should be grateful that people are engaging, and as you said, all opinions are valid.
Yeah, I'm sorry I gave that impression.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I'm thrilled to hear from Elliot that work is being done on hotels, conference centers, and inns and motels, that there will be a law specifically on that, that hotels will be excluded from the hamlets. I hope that the process of drafting that law will be an inclusive one. There's been lots of discussion of it, but there hasn't been discussion about language of a specific law, and it would be great if that were something that didn't take place behind closed doors. I know there'll be public discussion, but it would be great if there were public input to the drafting rather than just public reaction to something that's already drafted. So I would ask for that to be an inclusive process that engages the community. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, while that's great, we stand at risk right now. And it seems to be the position of members of this board that once a development application process has started moving forward, but before ground is broken, that somehow any changes you make can't be quote-unquote retroactive to those. I don't think that accords with New York State law, but that seems to be the opinion. And what that means, just so everyone knows it, under the current hotel law, as of right, without needing a variance, somebody could buy a property in a hamlet, in any one of our hamlets that's over 3 acres, and build a hotel. And that hotel can have 16 rooms for a 3-acre property and 7 more rooms for every additional acre. And that means that right here in Schultzville, there's a 6-acre lot, there's a 10-acre lot, 12-acre lot, 20-acre lot. That 20-acre lot, which is the beautiful white original Schultz house in Schultzville, that 20-acre lot could, as of right, get torn down and replaced by a 135-room hotel. And just for context, all of those hotels that popped up over on the other side of the bridge on 9W, by the malls, those are all 80 or 90-room hotels. So those big 4-story blocks, that's only 80, 90 rooms. And you can legally, as of right, build a 135-room hotel right now. You can also, as of right, build a conference center right now on any lot in the AR3 and AR5 districts that's over 25 acres. We are at risk of more out-of-scale development right now. And what I ask the board to do is, first of all, expedite the movement forward on this new law, an inclusive one, but also, in the meantime, to put on the table and vote a moratorium now on hotel and conference center development, one that applies to current applications that have not yet broken ground and to future applications. It may be, if what you're saying is accurate, that moratorium will only be enforced for 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. But we need it now, because somebody could be trying to buy one of those properties in Schultzville or Clinton Corners or Clinton Hollow or the other hamlets today and planning to file plans to build 80 and 100 and 135-room hotels. And we don't need more hotels, and we don't need 240 guest, 150 employee so-called conference centers, as the board is acknowledging. So we need a moratorium now because we are at risk now, and we need you to take action now. Thank you.
Can we just cover the process? Because you were concerned about input, so I will, correct me if I go astray here. So the wording has to be drafted so that you have something to work with. Then there will be a workshop, which all are welcome to come, and you can pick apart every word, all the grammar, whatever you want. And then we will have a public hearing, and then we have to wait
Yeah, with zoning laws, it has to go to the county for their comments, seeker reviews, so there's a process.
But there will be at least 2 opportunities for you to look at the words and give us suggestions. And it will all, you know where to find the information clearly, so we're good on that score. I would like to follow up, I think, I can't speak for everyone, but what I found, I'm glad to see you're all here. It is lovely when people are engaged. It is painful to sit here when there's no one in the room, so I thank you for that. What I find frustrating is the insinuations that we are fast-tracking or pushing through some sort of, as Michael stated, and I will state, and I will probably like go everywhere in town and remind people, this process, I've been in office almost 4 years, and we were on the definitions when I showed up. That was 4 years ago. So it's been a really long process, so just please remember that as we go forward. Here.
I also want to remind people that when you come to the mic, you're speaking to us, not the audience.
Okay. Hi,
Thank-
everybody. I'm Maggie Schimmelfennig. I've been a resident of Clinton Corners for 60-some-odd years now. I grew up here. And again, I appreciate all the work that you're putting into this. I appreciate the explanation of the processes. It sounds like what you were responding to was the process to do the law change for hotels, inns, and villas, and the process that would apply to that. That's what I thought I was understanding?
Any
Okay.
zoning revisions, yeah?
Okay. So my first concern, as always, is to maintain the historic value in our town and our rural character. And I tried to read through the zoning proposition, and I did note I wrote page 22. I realized I should have written 25 ACX or something. But there's the historic values mentioned, and there's a strikeout through the stating alternative actions to preserve our historic value. And I would encourage you to keep that in there at least, so that if people are looking to change the historic value, they've got to show us that they tried something else first. You know, so that was just one piece that I had noted specifically. And on page 28 about subdivisions, there was a note of removing the public hearing prior to, subdivisions, and I would also encourage you to keep that, because that notification to me helps me to be informed about what my neighbors are about to do. And I've come a few times when I've gotten those notifications, and at least it keeps me informed so that I'm not sending out misinformation. So I feel like that should be kept in there as well. Sorry, again, I only have the page numbers. And then page 39J, if there's a disagreement, the zoning board of appeals should be able to be involved in that. And I thought that should be kept too, because of this idea of checks and balances. So that was just specifics that I had written down. I am grateful for the people who are engaging, and I think the attendance and increased attendance is showing us that we've kind of hit a contentious issue here. And I'm really happy to hear that there's now a committee specifically looking at the hotels, inns, villas, motels, and conference centers. How can I become a part of that committee? I'd like to become a part of it, but I don't understand the process of being involved in that.
You're volunteered.
And so
You're a member.
good. So
There may be a lot of people here, but no one volunteers, so you're in.
Good. So I'll stop afterwards.
Just remember,
to
be
make
careful
sure
what
I
you
get
wish
on.
for.
Sorry, Elliot, what were you saying?
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, no, I know that's a big one, but yes, I would like to be a part of that.
Okay.
And as to the whole idea of the moratorium, I feel like that's very separate from all the processes that are taking place in establishing our new zoning laws and this law. I want to make sure that whatever we're doing, Six Senses, it will not end up being grandfathered in the process. When I drove home from Rhinebeck today, and I think to myself two different things. I'm like, this is already taking me so much time because the roads are so busy. Now we add a 240-room conference center plus employees. They're going to be coming here to see our sites. They're all going to be out on the road. The tax implications alone for us, as we have to increase our infrastructure to address this so that you can get from one place to another are going to be huge. So it's not just the rural nature that I, love. It's also the reality that as we bring in these big groups, that we're also going to put a burden on all of us as we have to support them and make room for them on our roads as well. So thank you.
Thank you,
listening.
Maggie.
Graham Trask, 68 Fiddler's Bridge Road. I'm heartened because it seems like there is some movement in what I would consider the right direction around looking at changing the conference center hotel motel laws. I do want to go back to what Adam said about the moratorium, though, because although I appreciate you addressing the process, it did not address what his point was, which was a moratorium. And so I'm concerned that the board continues to deflect the real key issue here and instead pushes people to, oh, we're doing something about it. And while I appreciate that, I do believe that you have come to the conclusion that it's broken. So why would you not put a short-term moratorium on that to address the concern, the very valid concern that Adam has? And so I know you don't, you do give responses, but it would be useful, I think, for the crowd to understand that as a first question.
Question being, what is the question?
Why will you not consider a moratorium for the next 2 months while you go through this process? What is the trepidation? What is the concern?
So the assumption that it hasn't been considered is also wrong right now. You just asked, why aren't we considering it? It has
Why
been
aren't you doing
considered.
it? How about that?
I would say, unfortunately, this group would probably not be happy because the moratorium would be forward-looking. So it still wouldn't, we'd put in a moratorium, but it wouldn't affect the project that you're looking to affect.
Well, that was my second question.
Yeah,
So, one step on a moratorium is certainly a step in the right direction. So you're saying the reason you won't do the moratorium is because you're afraid to disappoint the people who are concerned
No,
about
I
six
just
census?
did. I'm certainly not afraid. I'm doing it every day. So,
But my question still stands. Why will you not
so I'm
implement?
saying, if we did a moratorium, it'd be forward-looking.
Okay.
That would get the votes
Okay.
on this board, which wouldn't affect the project that you wanted to affect.
That's my next question.
It's also, if that moratorium, not having done one prior, is my understanding is that it's 6 months, and it can be, if you, once you solve the issue that you're trying to solve, it can be shortened, but it's 6 months, it's all building, it's everything. Every single thing stops. Nothing can happen.
That's not my understanding. Who's advising you of that?
No, that's not mine either, but
Oh, well, then, that,
It's also-
as I said, I'm
it's also,
not,
you can also get a 6-month renewal, and that ends it. So
Right.
basically, you have a year.
So I think you can make that moratorium as narrow as you define it. I'm not a lawyer, but I've been involved with a lot of them. So
I think you're, I hate to say it, but I think you're right about that.
I'm right? You hate to say it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
not
hate
very,
to say it,
that's
but
not
I
very
think you're
civil. The second question is, there is clearly
I
trepidation.
want to remind people that this is a public hearing, not a question and answer period. We do answer questions out of respect, but to come to the mic just to ask questions is, it kind of defeats the purpose of a public hearing.
Okay. Okay. you don't want to answer my questions, I guess, which is your prerogative. So the next one is about retroactive. And perhaps the answer to that was what Elliot said, was that there would be consideration that it would apply, the change of the law, if it happens, would apply retroactively. But again, that's kind of not really answering the question. And there seems to me that there is no will on the board to address the six senses in a way which everyone is here for, is my take.
I wouldn't say everyone.
Okay, again, I guess you're deflecting and you guys are good at that, but.
No, I'm not deflecting. Let me make a comment. I'm not a lawyer, but
Yeah.
our planning board approved this project according to the letter of the law.
ZBA.
ZBA, I'm sorry. They changed not a word.
Yeah,
It was legal. It was done by the book. We have no intention of overturning anything that the ZBA has done.
Okay.
When you talk about a moratorium going forward, happy to talk about it. You talk about a moratorium going backwards, telling Six Senses you no longer can do what we told you you can do, you are inviting a massive lawsuit.
well, you have a lawsuit, and you're gonna have more.
It says turn.
Stop.
But either way, you're gonna have lawsuits, but, I guess my question was this, the board opined that there has been a unappealable decision out of Hyde Park, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but that was a decision that you guys made because it has been litigated, and so it is not unappealable. You've made a decision it's unappealable. Is that not correct?
I'm not sure that's correct. I was told it was unappealable by the lawyers.
Has Hyde Park been sued over that?
On a different lawsuit, yes.
That
A
was
different
very
one.
narrow. What we voted on was very narrow.
So explain to me how it's, and,
This is a public hearing. I'm sorry, Graham.
okay.
It isn't questioning it.
So, are you saying that you are going to approve a moratorium going forward?
So I just said, this isn't a question and answer, and you responded with a question.
Well,
Is there someone else that would like to speak? Come up, please.
Calm.
Hi, Paul Feuerman. Bruce and I are on Sunset Trail. We've been here for 35-plus years. Want to start by thanking the board for your service. We know it's a thankless task, and I understand that people have not shown up for quite some time. I'm among them, but we're here tonight, and I do thank you. I'm going to start with a question, but not for you. I respect you. I'm just going to ask by show of hands, if you're here with concerns about this Six Sense project going forward, just please politely raise your hand. Okay, so it's not everybody, but it's a good number of people here. I think that's just important for you understand that we're here tonight because we're concerned about it going forward. And we respect the board's opinions, but part of that has to be how it reflects the town and how it impacts the town. And clearly this is a hot topic, but I think my suggestion is that please recognize that this is a very important project to all of us because we really think that it impacts the quality of the town that we're living in. The historic nature, the rural nature, the drain on our aquifers, the traffic that we have, people throwing litter on the roads. This is why we moved here. And, you know, I don't have anything personal against Six Senses. I've been to some of their facilities. I just don't want them, personally, I don't want them in my backyard. So I just wanted to make that statement. I'll come back to the definitions part because I'm really curious about why clear cutting is permitted 100% as opposed to the 30% rule that we had before. Because that's beyond Six Senses, that impacts, frankly, all of our properties. So again, I understand that's for a future
Yeah.
discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Nick Sacerdote, 207 Browns Pond Road. I also want to say thank you. I appreciate that there has been some recognition of issues with the laws and zoning, and that it will be worked on going forward. That is good news. I really do appreciate that. Not really going to speak any more to the moratorium or the Six Senses stuff, because I feel like that's been going on for a bit now. But I also have the same concern about the clear-cutting law. I just don't fully understand why it would go. I mean, that's a huge difference. I mean, from 30% to 99.9%. I don't really understand who that benefits. I mean, maybe bringing in some kind of logging operation, but yeah, just like don't understand why you would change the zoning around removing all the trees. So that's just my 2 cents. Curious about that one. Thank you.
So,
Be sure to come to the next meeting when we talk about the definitions.
Yeah.
thank you, Nick. No, it's all right. So just to address the clear cutting thing, if that change was made in definitions, it wasn't intended. My first meeting in January of 2018 was the first time I was on this board, and I took a vote that day approving a clear-cutting law that Elliot wrote, but it got voted down 3-2. So that is certainly something I would not be in favor of 100% of cutting trees, so I would definitely look at that if it's an issue. Anyone else? Yeah, right.
Hi, Jeff Newman, zoning administrator. Thinking about how long this process has taken, from the comprehensive plan 12 years ago, the revision process, I had the thought sitting there, like, there have been laws that have been passed in that time, and I'm thinking like the ag business law, the SCR law, that if there's some way to go through.
Can you
and
speak louder,
Oh, yeah,
please,
sorry.
Jeff?
So the process has taken so long, and laws have been passed outside of the revision process, a number of them. Is it, and I hate to make more work, but is it necessary to go through the current proposed revision, because some of those may have been already addressed in these other new laws? And then passing the revision, and the definition may be where this comes into play the most, might undo or have conflict with the subsequent laws being passed. I don't know, it's just a question that came to me.
My understanding is that anything that's in the zoning law, whether it's new, old, or somewhere in between, is up for grabs.
What do you
Whether
mean?
it was from 1992 or 2021 or 2000 whatever, if it's in the zoning law and we're revisiting the zoning law,
Right.
everything's on the table.
Right, what I'm
Yes,
saying is, so
but-
for example, the short-term rental law, right, has been written, passed, revised, and
Right.
passed again.
Right.
Has anybody compared the revisions being proposed in such a way that, to make sure that that doesn't impact that STR law, so that also now has to be looked at?
So anything that was written outside of the zoning revision shouldn't be included. It was separate, and we didn't touch that in zoning
Right,
revision.
but did we go back through the zoning revision and take those things out of the zoning revision? Right, because
I'll make
otherwise,
sure we do.
if not, and then it comes in, then it could be potentially in conflict with the
Yeah.
new laws, right?
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Well, I think when we had the zoning workshops, we basically bypassed the laws you're
Yeah.
talking about.
well, no,
That were
No,
re-
he's
recent
saying
laws.
like short-term rentals.
Right, short-term rentals
Did
were
we
not-
take out the half page that is in there
Yes.
currently?
Yes,
Did we take it out?
I believe so.
All right,
right,
I'll
yeah,
make
so
sure.
that's
we
something
didn't,
to
we
be checked.
should.
And then same thing against the definition, so that we don't
Yes.
end up creating a can of worms where
Yeah.
it, you know.
We spend quite a bit of time reconciling.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they should be up to date. I mean, if we miss something, of course, we'll take it out, but
Are you going to incorporate those alone laws into the current version of the zoning law?
Yes.
You
they-
should.
they should be.
They should be.
They're part of the zoning
Yeah,
law.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right,
I
they should
think
be.
that's a good suggestion, is
Yeah,
to
they should
submit everything as an incorporated
Correct.
document.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Mike,
you.
Just to make sure I understood, or understand, we are required to revise the zoning after every comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud, I'm just thinking out loud. Do we shelve it?
Do we what?
Well, I would like to finish the zoning revision and at the same time
Begin the comprehensive plan.
start a new
roll right
comprehensive
into the new
plan,
revision.
which would lead to a new zoning revision.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Hopefully not
I
12
mean,
years this
But
time.
not-
You
but not if it
understand
me-
my point.
Yeah, but not if
Yeah.
it means we rush it through and miss things that we should take care of. I mean,
My issue with that
would
is,
be my
You mean
concern.
rush through what, the comprehensive plan?
No, the zoning law, the revision.
No, what I'm thinking out loud is, do we just put this away, do a new comprehensive plan, and begin again? I don't think we legally can, based on what you're telling me, but
my
I'm
issue
just-
with that is that means that 12 years, and really a lot of things that were worth changing
Hours and
would
hours
be
and hours, yeah.
thrown away.
Just like I said.
That's true. That's true.
Apologies for coming back, but I thought of a more concrete example. So in the passage of the short-term rental law, for example, definitions were created, lodger, short-term rental.
Yeah.
Those definitions don't currently exist in the zoning revision section on definitions. So if the current zoning revision of definitions gets passed, then those definitions would go away. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about.
When you say the definitions, which version are you referring to?
So the zoning revision process started when it started. It's been gone
No,
through.
I
right?
understand that. No, I mean-
The section 105 was redone, and when that
Well-
was redone,
Right.
short-term rentals did not have a law that regulated them, and there was no definition for
There
them.
was a version redone in October 2022, which is the version which is actually the one we should be talking about. So the question is, when I said which version, if it was the 2018 version, sure, I can see why they weren't there, because we hadn't passed an STR law or what have you.
Right.
But by 2022, we had passed a conference center law. I guess we still had not passed an STR law came after that. Had we passed the Ag Event Center law in '22?
We had, but again,
So
and
they
I'm-
should be there.
Yeah, and I'm just listing this as an example. I haven't looked at the currently proposed revised section 105
Right.
definitions.
Right.
It may be that it's contained in there. My guess is that it's not. And that's what I'm talking about, is to go through to make sure all those new definitions are actually carried
Yes,
over.
then they should be there.
So- Because if
Absolutely.
they disappear, then that's an issue.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Dean, you were next.
Good evening, everyone. Dean Michael, 171 Allen Road. First of all, Catherine, you killed me with
I
getting rid
know.
of my work.
I was very clear that I was just processing out loud, because
I was on the town board for 16 years, 12 of those years, I was the chairperson of the zoning revision. One of the things that we did talk about was getting rid of the conference center law, period, by replacing it with the event law. And it was given to the prior owners of the current 6 Cents property, and they chose not to remove their conference center designation. And that's the only reason we kept it in the law. But I think we tried to tighten it up, and Ellie was the planning board representative at the time. And so that was why there was even a conference center law. We also talked about getting rid of the hotels and motels and everything else, because we didn't feel that it was part of the character of the town. And so after some of the comments tonight, I would kind of agree that we should probably strip out those parts, since you're already working on a new revision, strip out those parts from any final vote tonight, or whenever you're going to make the final vote. And also, for it doesn't affect the 6 Cents property currently, but I think we should put a moratorium going forward only until you finish what the new law is going to be, only to stop any further development and any further consideration of anybody who might buy a property, because I don't think it's fair to them either to buy a property with the intent, based on our current law, that they think that they can do that. So those would be my recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
I have immense respect for Mr. Michael, and he and I have rarely agreed. I think on this we may. Anyone else?
Cynthia Cook, Willow Lane Historical Society. I couldn't help notice how many people say they value the historical nature of our town, as well as the rural nature of our town. There's one way to protect the historic nature of our town, and it is to actually use that paragraph 255 that I referred to earlier. That is our local landmark and historic district law. If we have that in place for any property, for a hamlet as a historic district, it goes to the planning board for serious deliberation before any demolition can take place, before any substantial changes can take place, before somebody comes in and tears down Craig Marshall's beautiful house here in Schultzville. These properties should be on our local landmarks and our historic district law. I have had trouble getting people to agree with that premise because they worry that they're going to lose their property rights. Well, if you think broadly, you think about the good of the town, if you think about what we all value about this town, we value the fact that we have 350 historically significant properties in this town. The Historical Society did a historic resources survey in 2015. Since then, we've lost 2. We'll lose more because we don't have an outpouring of support for designating our properties as historically significant. That's the way to protect it. If you're interested, talk to me. Cynthia Cook at the Historical Society.
Thank you, Cynthia. I said thank you.
I'm sorry for coming up again. I'll be very quick. I just want to respond to a couple of things that were said by board members, one of which is to echo Ms. Michael's point about a forward-looking moratorium. You said, Mike, everyone here will be disappointed because we heard what you said, and that's true. I don't think Six Senses should be built. I will be disappointed by a forward-looking moratorium, but I would be way, way more disappointed by no moratorium.
All right.
So that I want you to hear. And in relation to the backwards-looking piece of it, I want to respond to something that Charlie Dykes said, which is, we can't go back to Six Senses. They've been told they can do it, and now we're going to tell them they can't do it. But I just want to say, I bought my current house in the year 2000, and as far as I know, there were no restrictions at all on short-term rentals. And there was no water body law. I'm on a pond, and there was no water body law. I bought my house thinking I could do whatever I want in terms of short-term rentals. Now I can't. Now I'm restricted about what I can do within 150 feet or whatever of a water body. I've accepted that because that's the way the law works. You can make laws that affect the way current property owners behave with their property, that limit their freedom on their property. You have the power to make laws that affect what IHG can do with the property that they own, and it doesn't matter what they thought when they bought it. You may decide you don't want to do that, but that's within your power, and you are making a political decision to ignore all of this input and say, no, we're going to let them go. because you don't have to let them go. So forward-looking moratorium, great, but it doesn't just have to be that.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. All right, anyone else? All right. She was before you, I'm sorry.
Not as well up to speed on all the zoning as you people, but I will thank everybody here
Need
for
his name.
I
Excuse
need-
me,
uh,
your name,
Sorry,
please?
am I not close? Better?
Your name.
Can you
please.
say your
Glenn
name?
Hershon. I live on Mountain View Road.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, say it again, please.
I'm Glenn Hershon. I live on Mountain View Road. I've been here for 14 years.
Len Hershon.
Thank you, okay.
It's a beautiful road, hundreds of acres that are probably not built yet. So, you know, the thing that's probably fearful for me is I thought I lived in a town that was protecting its rural character. You know, certainly big hotels. I was like, when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, it's on 9G. It's something that the town allows for whatever reason. You know, and I'm finding out now that, you know, if it was being built on my road, I would want my neighbors to come out just like this, you know, and fight against it. So that's what I have to say.
Hi, I'm Nancy White. I live on Schultzville Road. Been a resident for 35 years. And I, too, agree with the gentleman. I'm horrified by the change in the clear-cutting law. The other thing that I want to suggest to you all on this board is that we get a second opinion on how our laws are, the rewrites are written. I want to close all the loopholes. And I don't think that just our town lawyer is, you know, he may be good, but we're all guilty of missing things. So I would like for our town to employ a second lawyer and have, who specializes in land use. And I think it would be really helpful to avoid problems like we have now and future lawsuits.
Do you want a second reading of the proposed changes by a different
Yeah,
lawyer?
once
Is
you
that what you're saying?
get, once you get the full rewrite and to have it reviewed by a land use.
Someone else.
Yeah.
All right, just want to be clear that that's what you're suggesting.
I would say too, we always refer to our town attorney, but he's part of a firm. So, yeah, I speak to him, but he gets opinions from many people. It isn't just him. Anyone else?
Kind of answers two things. One is what she just said, was that during the planning process, our planner, who was an attorney, who helped us in writing a lot of this code, was an attorney. Then we submitted it to our attorney and also other people. So it's had several advised people. And my suggestion, and this is really what I was coming up for, was that one of the things I've kind of learned through the process and going forward in the next comprehensive plan is to hire a consultant, which was one of the options that we had. I wasn't involved in that decision, but hire the consultant to actually write the changes from the comprehensive plan and then have a committee after the fact. The fact that we brought all those things into committee and having 9 other people going back and forth making those changes, a lot of those changes took months and months and months and so many revisions that if we had the actual template and then worked from there, it would have been a whole lot easier. So that would have been my suggestion.
Thank you.
That's true. That's true.
Anyone else? I'd like to finish by wishing the Auspices a happy anniversary. All right, so I'll make a motion to keep the public hearing open until July 8th, 2025. At 6 p.m. to hear further comments on definitions in Article 9.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. I make a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we will now open our regular meeting, which you're all invited to stay at, but I'll wait a minute.
Take your chairs with you.
Only the, wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Hi there.
Why don't you write down your email address and give it to Elliot, and then he'll know how to reach you.
My email as well, still, Elliot? When does this committee tend to meet? Is it like a regular interval? Complete working calendar.
Yeah.
What's that?
They got some of it off their chest, though. I think we stood our ground.
Mike,
All right. So,
Just
yeah,
lean
please
back.
reach out to me, and if it's more appropriate to just at least have one sit down together, then we'll do that. We'll have it all at the store, and we'll read it over.
clearly people want to talk about it. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you.
Michael?
Yeah.
But what?
Yeah, okay, let's go.
I can't hear you.
Let's go.
Time
We have to get our meeting started.
board meeting. Michael, this is what I was looking for this afternoon, that I think should go back. Oh, good, Art is here, Art Pritchard, yes, Art's here. Just give him,
I'll get in touch.
you have his email?
Don't wait by the phone, because it's not gonna happen right away.
All right, we're gonna start the regular meeting.
For sure.
I would like to pass it to you to approve minutes.
Okay, I'll move that the board approves the May 13th, 2025 public hearing minutes. Second, all discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And that we approve the minutes from the May 13th, 2025 regular town board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
We are going to have a special presentation by Art Pritchard, who represents the Masons in town. And is that still here?
It's here.
They donated this bench.
Good evening. I'm Art Pritchard. There was a time when I lived in Clinton, out at Jug Hill in Clinton Hollow. So I think that once you've been a Clintonite, your roots never really get pulled out of the ground. I'm here tonight with the master of the lodge, Jim Smith. And it's an interesting thing to say about tradition, we'll talk about later. We're here to present the town with this bench. And we'll tell the story about the bench. It was an organization in Buffalo called the Battle Within in one of the Masonic lodges. And it occurred because one of their brothers came back from Afghanistan, suffered deeply, and took his life. Post-traumatic syndrome. So out of that came the initiative to create the opportunity for people to become more aware of the plight of our returning veterans. But at the same time, having been here in Clinton and knowing some of the recent history of the park and students and so on, we felt it would be kind of a double hope to provide a resource for people who are in need of support, and that they could find it, or at least have a quiet few moments sitting in a bench in the shade on a nice summery day in front of the pond at the Memorial Park. I heard people in the public forum talking about tradition. Warren Lodge is named after Dr. Joseph Warren. A week from today will be the 250th anniversary of his death at the Battle of Bunker Hill.
Wow.
He was very much involved in fomenting the actions of patriots through resistance, rebellion, and then revolution. And that battle started the revolution. It couldn't be turned back by then. The lodge itself wasn't always here. As you know, it was down at the center in Schultzville. The lodge goes back to 1807. It was begun in Pine Plains and then moved to Lafayetteville briefly and then came here. It was Gus Schultz that donated the funds for the land and for the building. And if you've not had the opportunity to be on the second floor, it would be a great opportunity for you to do that, to see the beautiful ceiling work that was done by a shipbuilder as that building was being constructed. Masons have three charges, basically: to our Maker, to our community, and to ourselves through education. And I know that with Brother Jim at the helm now, there's going to be a lot more interaction between the lodge and the members of the Clinton community. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to share. I hope that the bench will serve as a place of rest and reflection, and also as a place for the support of those who need our help. Thank you very much.
I would just like to add that for all of you who haven't been downstairs to see the new kitchen, Art did all the cabinetry, and I think he deserves a hand for that.
I would like to thank Art and Jim and the Masonic Lodge for this donation, and really your dedication to our community is really astounding. So we have now public discussion on agenda items. Is there anyone who would like to speak on agenda items? No? So we're gonna skip that. So I usually print out my comments, but apparently I didn't today. They're short though. I'll read them if you need me to.
I can do it. Whoa. How do you make this go away? Sorry.
It's all right. So the town of Clinton offices, the Highway Department, Justice Court, and court will be closed for the Juneteenth holiday on Thursday, June 19th, and Independence Day on Friday, July 4th. The Clinton Community Library will also be closed those days. The Town of Clinton Conservation Advisory Committee and the Clinton Garden Club are looking for volunteers to help maintain gardens this summer. If you're interested in volunteering for this, please contact the supervisor's office. We will put volunteers in touch with the chairperson of our town CSC, Barbara Mansell. As part of Dutchess County's ongoing efforts to build an inclusive community for those with disabilities, they are inviting families and residents of all abilities to a free sensory-sensitive screening of How to Train Your Dragon on Saturday, June 14th, 2025 at the Lyceum Cinemas in Red Hook. Doors open at 10 a.m. and the movie will begin at 10:30. Registration for this free event is required, and you can register online at dutchessny.gov/movie. Finally, the East Clinton Fire Department held a vote to decide whether residents in East Clinton service area will fund a new facility. The funding was approved by a vote of 161 to 65. And that is all I have. Any comments on your end?
Sure. I'd just like to add a couple of things on a high note. We've had some developments with the cemeteries that I think are worth mentioning. Marion mentioned this briefly a month ago over at Childsville Cemetery across the road. The highway department came in and did a very, very nice very nice job. In the back, if you can imagine when you're driving up to the cemetery, you can enter through the back on Old Farm Road. That's in terrible shape. Mud, ruts, and it's also been used over the years as a dumping ground for branches and limbs and even some small trees, a lot of brush and whatnot. So they came in and they cleaned it all out. They graded the access, which is a little bit of a hill, so it's a little steep getting up there. Graded the whole area and put down gravel. So there's a nice parking area there. Access is much easier than it has been in the past, and that will be particularly helpful when we have rain or melting snow, because the whole area would turn to mud. And it was really an eyesore, among other things. So I want to compliment the Highway Department for having done that work and done a very nice job. And I also want to have a special thank you for Lori Brands, who is on our cemetery committee. Perhaps you folks remember that there was a time, which unfortunately it's been a couple of years now, but we were on the list for the Rhinebeck, the Rhinebeck VA. Rhinebeck American Legion would come around every year around Memorial Day and put up flags for the veterans. And they would stay up typically through the summer into 4th of July. Then they would come back, take them down, and do it again the following year. Well, that had been going on for a long time, and then for some reason it stopped. I think COVID had something to do with that. Whatever the reason was, we haven't been on their list now for about 3 years. So Lori Brands came to me and said, I would like to get us back on the list, and I said, that's great, terrific. She made contact with a gentleman at the American Legion in Rhinebeck. They are still putting the flags out, and we're now back on the list. So if you go to Childsville Cemetery, or if you're out in West Clinton, you stop off at Pleasant Plains Cemetery, you will see flags. You'll see American flags marking veterans' graves for the first time in several years. Very nice touch, and I want to thank Lori Brands for her work on that.
Thank you. Town board reports, we may as well continue with
Okay,
you.
well, let's see, we've got a couple of reports here. The Scenic Roads Committee met May 19th, and I believe we'll be meeting again, actually not, we're not meeting again until September. Discussed basically old business, road cleanup, which went very well this year. Of course, Community Day, which was just last Saturday, and also talking about preparing some flyers or perhaps bookmarks to be distributed around town, just to let people know what they do and, well, who they are and what they do. Building Department report for the month of May. 21 building permits were issued as opposed to 8 the previous month. 3 COs and CCs issued, which is the same. Actually, no, I'm sorry, there were 5 issued in the month of April. 3 title searches, that was the same number as the previous month. But bottom line is the total cost of construction went from $60,000, or actually less than $60,000 in April, to $1.2 million in May. So our guys were busy there. And lastly, May 27th, a meeting of the Climate Smart Committee, well-attended meeting, I should say, with several people from the public, which is always nice to see. Just a brief summary, the chairman, Joe Phelan, updated the task force on the status of the $10,000 grant from CEC, which is part of this NYSERDA task force to conduct an energy study of the town highway garage and to begin addressing the study's recommendations. The actual on-site audit was conducted on April 14th by a representative of LS Energy in Albany. They're the ones who are actually doing the work. We also had contact with Joe and Barbara Mansell, whom Michael mentioned previously. Had a meeting with the new climate and environment educator for the Cornell Cooperative Extension at Dutchess County. The office has been vacant for several months. There's been some personnel turnover. We had a very, very good relationship with the woman who had the position before. She's moved on to greener pastures. There's now somebody in her place. And basically, this was an outreach meeting to just establish a relationship, get to know who you're dealing with, and that kind of thing. Work is continuing on a climate action plan, which the CSC started a couple of years ago. Tempra put it aside to work on certification, which they achieved a few months ago. We have a gentleman, Richard Marshall, who is not here tonight, unfortunately. He's taking the lead on that. He's a member of the task force. He's working with the climate action plan of the government organization Climate Action Plan, which is part of the Hudson Valley Regional Council. He's meeting with representatives who are helping him through the process, and hopefully there will be something coming down the pike within the next couple of months. The CSC was also present at the at Community Day. If anybody remembers, they had a table and giving out information about what they do and who they are, and always soliciting volunteers to work on special projects. And next meeting will be on Tuesday, the 24th of this month at the Masonic Lodge, which we were just speaking about a few minutes ago, at 7 o'clock. As always, public is welcome to attend.
Thank you,
for me.
Elliot. Maren?
I want to Catherine. You
What?
skipping Catherine?
I-
Doesn't matter,
He's
never.
mixing up
I
the order
do,
tonight.
every order is different.
We're out of order.
He's trying to throw
okay.
me off my game
Yeah.
here.
There you go.
know.
The Highway Department road signs, a new sign machine has been put into use this month. The crew has begun working to replace the many broken or damaged road signs. Roadside mowing, the crew has been mowing the sides of each town road and line trimming around all the signs and guide rails to help maintain safety and clear sight distances. The speed sign was placed on Shadblow Lane this month to serve as a reminder to obey the town speed limit, which is 30 miles an hour. A culvert pipe replacement is taking place on Rusky Lane. This is a large-scope project and has required the highway crew to work with the town engineer, the local Dutchess County and Soil and Water, Central Hudson, and UDIG. The highway superintendent and secretary are working to secure grant money to help offset the project costs. During the month of May, we experienced a significant amount of rainfall. The crew is continually working to maintain the dirt roads. Several crew members performed landscaping work for the garden club around the town hall complex, and one work permit was issued this month. And I would also like to add that I called on the highway department to help pick up large trash that was thrown in a creek and tires that were tossed on the side roads. That's not in their job, but they did it for us, and I appreciate it and thank them. Okay, on to the library. The Friends of the Library Garden Tour is happening rain or shine on Saturday, June 28th. Tour 8 beautiful and diverse gardens here in the town of Clinton. Tickets are $30 and available for purchase online. The link is on the library's website. Tickets will be $40 on the day of event, so get there early. Summer reading signs up starting Monday, June 30th. Kids are encouraged to track their reading this summer and then pick a prize every week. The library and Zero Waste Hudson Valley will be hosting a repair cafe on Saturday, July 12th from 12 to 4. If you have a skill you can share to help fix things, please contact Carol Bancroft at the library. And the library is asking all town residents to complete a survey that will help inform the board, library board, about the town's growing needs. The link is featured prominently on their website. And may statistics, circulation of physical items, books, audiobooks, DVDs, and museum passes was 834. Circulation of digital items, including e-books, e-audiobooks, e-magazines, and streaming videos, was 824. For programming, the library held 51 adult programs with attendance of 536. 4 children's programs with an attendance of 49, and 9 one-on-one tech help sessions. And that's it for the library.
Thank you. Charlie?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
And nothing new on maintenance.
Monthly Recreation Department report, June 10th. Next rec meeting, June 30th, 7 p.m. here. Please join us. We love your new ideas. Previous activities, we held our monthly chess club. The group meets on the first Monday of each month. Since our last meeting, we have held our annual 3-versus-3 basketball tournament. Ellie and I came in last on that. Our community yard sale and participated in the Clinton Community Day. The weather put a bit of a damper on all of that, but we'd like to thank everybody who participated. The pavilion at Franmark Park is fully rented for all weekends in June and several weekends in July. Please check the rec calendar if you're interested in renting. The hiking club will be hiking at the John Burroughs Slab Sides Trail in West Park on Saturday, June 21st. Is that still in the schedule? Okay. Hiking starts at 9 a.m. Details on the website. Registration for session 1 of summer camp is due by June 16. Session 2 is filled, but there's still openings for the other 3 sessions. How long are those sessions last?
A week.
A week.
A week, not
Okay.
for a week at a time.
The
Sign
summer,
up for all the weeks, but it's week.
the Summer Weekly Adult Basketball League began last Saturday, and the Snack Shack is open during the games. The pond at Franmark Park is open for swimming on weekends until the end of the month. Then we're open 7 days a week once school ends. Visitors must have a parking pass. Very important note, construction on the pickleball courts at Friends Park starting this month. Good job.
I think it started today.
It started today. We should have gone over there and
I will.
picked up a shovel. The annual summer concert series begins July 11th Dates and performers are listed on the website. That's it. Hometown Heroes. We have completed our second round of Hometown Hero banners. We'll be adding 5 banners to be displayed on either Center Road or Salt Point Turnpike. I'm pleased with that second round. We'd like to thank everybody who participated. We look forward to more participants in the future. Thank you in advance to Dave Stewart, owner of DNS Services, who installs them. On a personal note, I know I've approached the Boy Scout troop. I'm sure in our cemeteries there's some veteran buried there whose family is long gone, and he should be remembered. And if we can find some volunteer committee or some group that might be interested in researching some of the tombstones, it doesn't have to be World War II, could go all the way back to the Civil War. We could find some fallen soldier that we can honor with a banner, which would be a very nice thing. Okay? So let's keep that in mind.
And possibly Elliot and the cemetery committee can help
Yeah,
out.
we actually have a few over in the old cemetery in West Clinton that go back to the Revolution.
That would be interesting. May I add one more subject?
Providence Cemetery.
Cell phone service. We're finally in touch with Verizon, Optimum, an engineering firm and a law firm who are involved in working towards improving our cell phone service. And Senator Hinchy's office, so we have that mix of people on their way. It's going to take a while, but they're aware that some of our cell phone service is awful. Trying to get anybody on the phone from Verizon is almost impossible, as many of you probably know. One of the responses I received was, some of our answers may be AI generated and therefore may not be accurate. Which installed great confidence in what I was doing out there. Anyway, we'll plow through all that. It is underway. It's going to take a while, but we're going to work very hard to improve our cell phone service. Optimum is not a cell phone provider, but they're an internet provider. They come into your house wirelessly or via Central Hudson lines, but obviously they're interested. So we've gone Optimum for some help also.
Thank
So
you.
that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. And Catherine.
All right, Michael mentioned the CAC is looking for volunteers with help with the gardens. They meet tomorrow at 5:30 over in the Masonic Hall, so you can hang out with those lovely people and look at the beautiful ceiling that was mentioned prior. Planning Board, they, in June, they looked at the special use and site plan for Cornerstone and a ground-mounted solar application, and the ZBA looked at 2 area variances in the month of June. That's all I got.
All right. There is no old business this month. Can you read
Sure,
the
I can do that.
motion for new?
Okay, first order of business. Approve an agreement with Excel Elevator. Move that the town board approves the following resolution. Amending the Excel Elevator contract dated May 29th, 2025, and authorizes, directs, and empowers the town supervisor to sign the agreement.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
In discussion, we have an agreement with Excel that's been going year to year for maintenance of our elevators. The one in the Masonic Hall recently had a mechanical failure, and the rate of pay for Excel was really high. So I ended up speaking to them. The rate has been lowered by about 25%, and any increases going forward will be no more than a 3% rate hike. So this new contract represents that. Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Okay, I will move town board approves the following resolution. Resolution number of 2025, authorizing the attorney for the town of Clinton, Shane J. Egan Esquire, to enter into a settlement agreement with the attorney for petitioner Hillary L. Thomas, Esquire, the terms of which are set forth in the attached consent judgment, and hereby authorizes Shane J. Egan Esquire to sign said consent judgment on behalf of the town of Clinton. A second for that.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Catherine,
I wanted to have a very high-level discussion about the possibility of introducing a PO system for the town. It is something that I use at my job at the school every day. So I have some knowledge of how a purchase order system works. That being said, I don't, not within a town, which may be slightly different. In thinking about it, I had a couple of, does anybody know how it works at all, a purchase order system? Have you had any experience?
no.
No.
Yes.
So Carol, yes, but, so, just in general, the way it works is you put in what's a requisition, right? So I ask to, buy shovels because we need shovels. And there's an approval path. So it would go to Mike for approval. Well, you're gonna be the final approver probably, but if it's in the highway, so then I would Melissa might put it in, Todd would approve it, and then it would go to an intermediary who maybe would be, I don't know who it would be, to make sure that all of the attachments are there that needed, that it follows the rules of the purchasing policy, and then Mike, you would be, or whoever the supervisor is, would be the final approver. And then it gets printed and sent out and yada, yada, yada. So there's a few things you have to figure out. One is, what's that path for each department? And we don't have a lot of departments, but that's the big question. And then you would obviously always be the final approver. I don't think it makes sense to have a council person because we're not all available on a regular basis to sign onto the computer. But it's certainly something up for discussion. We're compliant. We do what we need to do to follow all the laws as far as our purchasing is concerned, but it would be perhaps another check or balance. So that's just like just so you'll understand what it is. And
So currently, for public, we're using a voucher system. So basically, a service or an item is purchased and then approved. And that can lead to some mismanagement of money. So voucher system, or a PO system, would make it so that it has to be approved first. A question I have is, so we use the highway, so we approve a budget, they can spend so much on supplies and parts for trucks. Approving every one of them would kind of be burdensome. Whereas I wonder if there's a dollar amount that has to go.
You can put the budget into the system and then work against it.
Exactly.
And yes, you would put in a requisition when you want an item. That being said, you can do what's called a blanket purchase order. So let's say for Minuteman Press, Carol could put in a purchase order for a set amount of money for the year.
Yeah.
And then you work off of it.
Other
But yeah.
towns, I know, Catherine, they have like, anything under $500 can be purchased straightforwardly.
Right.
Because anything under 500 would meet the procurement policy. There wouldn't be anything out of bounds typically for anything of that nature. So the board can choose to set that level.
Right, yes, so I think we'd probably have to revise the purchasing policy, and I'm sure there'd be costs involved, but I just wanted to start the conversation, to everybody have an slight idea about how it works, so you can kind of think about how it would work on a
Doesn't our
daily basis.
procurement policy already establish dollar amounts for
Well,
what has to be
yes.
done to a
Yes.
certain dollar amount?
Yes, but this is
It's
just
really a system of approving things before they're bought.
Don't we do
Or-
that, we do that now, don't we?
No.
We're not.
It's afterwards.
But we're supposed to be doing it now, aren't we?
Well,
So-
yeah, we're supposed to be doing it now, but let's tell the audience what we're talking about.
When
That
we-
item was purchased,
When we approve the budget, we are approving purchases, but there are instances where sometimes the budget for a line item is exceeded and forgiveness is asked, or we need to move money from one to the other.
Why don't we-
Whereas
Go ahead. I'm
a
sorry.
PO system would avoid that. on
Why
larger
don't we
purchases.
simply amend the procurement policy to require prior approval? Can't we do that? That seems like a simple,
It's established, Elliot. It's already established.
well, so it's there. So what are we
It's
talking about?
not being followed.
Well, but that doesn't mean you have to go out and buy software because it's not being followed. I mean, if we have a
So
policy,
what's
we should
your
be,
recourse?
we should be implementing the policy we already have. I mean, I don't know what the recourse is, but
Well,
it
that's
seems to
the
me
issue.
spending money on a software program to simply
Catherine, how many,
correct a problem that,
I understand your point.
yeah, how
Besides,
many
who's to-
extra people would we need to hire to implement this?
and who's
I
to
mean,
say that
okay,
it would
wait.
work anyway?
I am not responsible for printing out the purchase orders to be disseminated. And I am not in the weeds with what everybody's workload is in the town. However, it is my opinion that it would not take a great deal of time to check and approve and send on to the next person and then to print, and then you wouldn't, they don't even actually have to print them. Once they're approved, that department might be their responsibility to print them and send them out. So the workload, you could decide to some extent how it's laid out, and I don't think it would be heinous amount of
How many
work.
purchases do you think we make a day?
Well, how many vouchers do
Yeah.
you sign every month?
Yeah.
That's how many purchases are made.
Right, well, I can tell you. So-
That's
Well,
for one
I'm
time.
only
We had-
signing one department, I don't
So-
know what's
so we
going
had-
through everybody.
So we had I'm about to, at the end of the meeting, I'll read vouchers number 235 through 289 and 169 through 197. So that gives you
Okay.
an idea of how many.
But
it- and it varies.
This summer is lean.
Right.
So, the other 6 months of the year, I'm managing 250 vouchers a month.
I think also it's worth remembering, there is a time aspect, but we would also be eliminating the voucher system.
Right, and it would also probably save a lot of paper when
But
you
what's
look at
the-
that stack.
Yeah.
What's to prevent people who want to circumvent the system by making a purchase without approval?
Well,
Would-
I mean,
then-
you know,
Which they can do now. That doesn't change, right?
and to be very clear, it does happen. At the school, if you do a purchase without a purchase order, you have to write an after-the-fact letter and explain yourself. And explain why it happened, because they have to report to the auditors. So, I mean, it's.
Do you have any idea how much it costs to buy the software?
I don't.
Does anybody have any concept?
We can
of
talk
that?
privately
Yeah.
about it, so I
And I'm
have
sure
some
there's
information.
multiple
Okay.
vendors, so. All right, but that's
All
all, I
right.
just wanted, so we can all kind of think about it as we go about our days
Yeah.
and, because we'll all think of different pitfalls, because we all have slightly different roles.
Yeah,
On a
it
day-to-day
all
basis.
sounds good too. There is the, in the weeds, how we'll operate thing we have to worry about.
Right, yeah, workflow is
So,
gonna matter. So,
Um,
thank you for that time.
Thank you. Other items, there are no resignations, so warrants.
Okay. Be it resolved that the town board approves the June general fund warrant, vouchers number 235 through 289 totaling $132,123.13, and the June highway fund warrant, vouchers numbered 169 through 197 totaling $92,080.89, and the June capital fund warrant, vouchers number 8 and 9 totaling $1,325. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Sure. I moved, on behalf of our town supervisor, Town Board approved resolution number of 2025, a motion to move funds at the June 10th, 2025 Town Board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
And discussion.
I would just say we had an increase in funding for our CHIPS program, which is a highway thing, state money that the state provides each town on per capita income, I guess. And the new budget has increased that funding. So I was able to increase it in the budget for us by about, I think was at about 40,000, yeah.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So, there is no supervisor report this month to approve because we got it at about noon today. And I thought that was unfair. People wouldn't have time to look at it. So, we can approve it next month. Anything else? All right. Public discussion on non-agenda items. I open the floor to public discussion. I make a motion to open the floor. Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Come on up. There. We'll have Carol first. Cynthia already spoke twice.
Hi, I'm Joyce Morse, and I serve on the Board of Trustees for the Clinton Community Library.
And I'm Carol Bancroft, the Library Director. As Marion mentioned in her library report, the library is conducting a community survey, and it was wonderful that she mentioned it, and we just want to give a little bit more information about why it's important. So why a survey? Well, we're exploring the possibility of expanding our space or even looking toward a larger facility because our current space just isn't meeting all of the community's needs anymore. Our collection has grown along with our circulation, and we've seen a rising demand for spaces you often find in other local libraries, like colorful and creative children's rooms and a well-lit community rooms for programs and events. A lot of people who come to our library programs assume that the town hall space here belongs to the library because it's where we have our yoga classes and our lunch and learns, but our actual footprint is pretty small. We're very grateful that the town lets us use this space for programming, but it isn't part of the library itself.
Over the past few years, it's become clear that there are just some needs we just can't meet with the building as it is. Just to give you a quick picture of what we're envisioning for the future, room for our collection to keep growing, more seating and a quiet work-study area, a more accessible children's room, one-level accessibility, restrooms in the library space, and a community room equipped with updated technology for events and programs. And if anyone has ever gone down the stairs here or witnessed a grandmother taking her toddler grandchild down to the children's programs, the stairs are pretty treacherous, and people are at risk for falls. It's kind of scary. To better understand what the community wants and needs, our long-range planning committee created a short survey. We'd love for everyone to fill it out, whether you're a regular library user or not. The link is easy to find right on the homepage of our website, www.clintoncommunitylibrary.org. And if you'd prefer a paper copy, just stop by the library's front desk, and we can print one out for you.
We also have bookmarks, and we place them on the back table. They're also available in the library, and there's a QR code, so you can just scan it and take the survey on your phone.
And just a little thank you that anyone who completes the survey and includes a valid email address is entered into a drawing to win a $50 gift card, either at Jimmy Bean's or the Golden Russet. We're giving one away of each. And we're hoping to get at least 100 responses. So far, we have 49. Every response helps us better serve the community, and we really do want to hear what you think. Thank you so much for your time and for helping us spread the word.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm back again.
Lynn?
Mike brought up a good point last meeting in regards to the senior exemption, senior 467 exemption. I know towards the end of the meeting you had said that it wasn't your decision, it was the board's decision. So I'm asking if we can put it on the board's agenda next month so that the board will vote on it. We have the option of calculating that senior exemption, same way that the STAR exemption is calculated, which is how it used to be calculated up until 2023. So the board has the option of voting on that. So I'm told that the public can't put anything on the agenda. It would have to come from one of the board members. So can we do that for next meeting?
Excuse me, Lynn, did you label that, you labeled the exemption like a 4?
It's the senior 467 exemption.
Thank you.
And the board does have the option to have it calculated the way that it used to, which would benefit the seniors. If you're over 65, I would suggest that you still fill the application out and let the assessor determine whether you're eligible or not. This is in addition to that STAR exemption. And the application is only like 2 pages. If anybody needs help with it, I'll be glad to show you how to fill it out. My phone number is 845-266-8319, and I'll meet you at the library. I'll help you out with it, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Drago. I'm the chair of the Friends of the Library, and I just wanted to reiterate what Marion introduced before about our upcoming garden tour, which is 2 weeks from Saturday. We do have 8 beautiful gardens. People will drive around and tour each garden separately, and it should be a very great event for the community and for the library also. In addition to that, I would like to speak on behalf of the Friends of the Clinton, not to be confused with the Friends of the Clinton Library, but the Friends of Clinton worked tirelessly this whole past year in creating our Community Day last Saturday. And I'm so impressed with the energy and the organization and everything that they contributed to the community to make it happen. It was a special day. Unfortunately, it rained, but kids came out with their little slickers and boots, and everybody that came had a great time.
Thank you, Nancy. Oh.
But I have handouts. I don't have candy.
I want the candy. How cute. Your color.
And color, too.
I want to tell you, I hope you didn't do that by hand.
Yeah. Thanks.
Tell me who I'm looking at.
Stand. Who's on your list?
Thank you.
Not.
Okay, I'm Dan Burnt, Schoolhouse Road. I'd really like to correct, speaking of misinformation, Mike, I'm following on your trajectory there. I'd really like to correct a bit of scary disinformation. It is floating around. It's been floating around for like over a year now. I've heard members of multiple boards kind of stating this. So I think it's important that people better understand some of the realities around the Six Senses property. So I and others have heard it from, again, various members of the boards in government, other representatives. It's the whole, if not Six Senses, it will be a 77 house project, okay? And if one employs some critical thinking here, one could come to a reasonable conclusion based on the history of the property alone. 32 acres, flat, cleared, has been a farmland, horse paddocks, et cetera, for decades. In 2019, the property was put on the market. It went through COVID, and finally, after the height of the Hudson Valley real estate spike and boom, it sold for $8.5 million to a lovely couple that wanted to start a biodynamic farm on the property. No big development, a biodynamic farm, okay? The 2 years it was on the market, in the height of the market, yet no developers came clamoring to build 77 houses. Why do people suddenly believe that after the market is flattened, that the property is now desirable for such development? On its face, this idea that someone can slam 77 houses is far-fetched at best. Now, I know that board members are smart people, and you would dig into the plans for probably the most contentious issue that this board has probably faced in a while.
Oh, I wish.
I just recently found the Laserfiche folder on the town's website. Contains a treasure trove of documents from the developer that was submitted, and that's where the printout that I just gave you folks. It's color. It contains basically, it's called a constraints map, so you can imagine what it probably is. It was done by an engineer. I assume that IHG CCNY paid for that. It has a New York formal stamp on it. I'm guessing it could be a map of, again, a map of constraints. It has 3 main things. All the wetlands of record are identified in green. Now, we also know that Hudsonio has identified some other areas that they believe should be wetlands that are not considered of record, but never mind that. Around the wetlands are blue dotted lines that identify legally required setbacks. Now, this map is dated prior to this year, so those setbacks, from what I understand, may no longer be accurate, and since the setback distances, I believe, increased this past January 1st. So those setbacks would actually be larger. Number 3, the most interesting to me, was the area in red. Those are the steep grades and other areas that can't feasibly be built upon. While there may be some small white spots in there where one might build a small structure, access roads would be required, the property owner would give up their forest tax plan exemption status, which all but 70 acres of the property of the 228 acres in Clinton is currently under, okay? Removing the property from that tax status would mean significant tax penalties, and they'd have to pay all back taxes that has been not paid for property taxes due to that exemption in order to remove it from that status, okay? So at least this is my understanding. I've checked a few sources, tried to do some research to make sure that I understand it correctly. I did the best I could, okay? So what I'd really like to see is for people to please stop spreading this disinformation meant purely to scare people that, like, if it's not 6 Senses, we're going to have a horrible housing development. It's just not true. In fact, the area that is flat now, that's mowed down now, is basically the area they can reasonably develop. That is it is a good portion of it is AR3. If it was all AR3, that would mean basically they could build 10 houses, okay? So let's bring it down. I don't personally I don't think that would be so terrible to have 10 houses filled with new citizens that were part of the community and volunteering in our community. That doesn't scare me. So one more plug. It seems perhaps the board feels around the moratorium it's not right to inflict that on 6 Senses. Perhaps there was some previous embrace of the project. I would just remind you that You know, the citizens are finally getting information about this project. So you can change your minds. It is allowed. And the citizens are who, you know, you're at the end of the day working for, not Six Senses. I understand the quandary. You want to do the right thing. Oh, they bought the property with this expectation. But at the end of the day, they'll be okay. You know, they could write this property off and it wouldn't affect their bottom line. That's kind of a reality check. Another thing, I would really think it would be amazing to have an information sharing, open house, town hall, something on this topic. Because you're right, there is misinformation out there. It's coming from, I mean, the real estate broker from the deal is telling people that less than 4 acres is going to be impacted by this project. Come on. I mean, even the developer's documents say that 32 acres of the property will be disrupted. And so there's all kinds of crap going around. In terms of any misinformation on the part of Common Senses HV, I would love to hear specifically what that is, because I think many of us would like to ensure that it gets corrected. So you know my email address. I'm certainly open to meeting with whoever to make sure that anything that's published is, at least in terms of like website, things like that we would work to get any of that corrected. In terms of updated plans, yes, we recognize that probably some of the old information is there because that's what we had access to. Learning that there's new plans, and looking at them, they don't seem like they're terribly different. So a lot of the high-level issues still remain, but we'll get the other stuff corrected as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Hi.
Hey.
Anne Marie Tucker, Vice President of Friends of Clinton, Shadwell Lane. I really want to thank the community for coming out on Community Day. It was awesome. A huge thank you to each and every one of you who came and helped make last Saturday's event amazing. It was fantastic. It was memorable. The kids got to play in the mud, as my son said. It was so awesome, Mom. We all remember how it started and continued throughout the day with some serious rain. We had a lot of mud, more mud than we ever bargained for. But true to the spirit here in Clinton, we didn't let the rain stop us. And right on cue, as Don Estes stood on the stand to announce the parade, the sun came out. It was epic. The energy, the enthusiasm of this community here in Clinton is so amazing. We were really blown away by the incredible participation this year, not just in the day, but in the parade, from the businesses that came out, the families, the community groups, the fire departments in Dutchess County that showed up. Huge congratulations. We said we would announce the winner of the community float was the Clinton Post Office. If you didn't see it, it was epic. They represented the town, they represented the history of the Postal Service in the United States. The pictures are all posted on Facebook. We have a Friends of Clinton, New York Facebook and Instagram, so there's pictures there. Throughout the day, our awesome community vendors and our food trucks kept everyone fueled and happy. The kids had an absolute blast with so many games in the mud. They did not care. BB the Clown. We had Hudson Valley Reptile and Rescue, thanks to the library. We had Charlie and the Bubble Factory, so cool, from the West Clinton Firehouse. They sponsored them. Parents were all stars that day, taking kids out covered in mud from head to toe with their ice cream coupons from Stewart's. They didn't care. They had a blast. It really was amazing. We had 3 fantastic bands that played throughout the entire day. So Clinton, we are so grateful to you for coming out to Clinton Community Day this year. I think that everybody who came had a blast. Everybody who missed it, we'll see you next year. We want to share with you that we have a few, not many, Clinton hats left. not Rhinebeck, Clinton, since 1786. Thank you, Paul. We have one blue one left. We have a handful of tan and some pink. They are $20. That's it. They went fast. But I want you to mark your calendars for our next big Friends of Clinton event. Will be our dance party on July 12th. It will be over here on Shadblow, 225 Shadblow. We'll be posting lots of information. To get into the dance party, please bring a non-perishable food item for the food pantry. Be sure to follow us on social media. And any pictures you'd like to see on Saturday are also posted there on social media. Again, thank you, Clinton. You showed up in the rain for showing us your heart, your humor, your hometown pride. We really could not have done this without everyone. And we will see you on the dance floor next month. And lastly, save the date, June 6, 2026, for our Community Day, where we will be honoring our hometown heroes in 2026. Thank you, Clinton.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
You again.
Yeah, sorry, me again. Sorry, Elliot. So I just wanted to touch on something that came up during the public hearing that wasn't really necessary about what the public hearing was about. But zoning is a really complicated thing. And the idea of revising the law around events and hospitality and hotels and motels, most of our laws around that are in serious need of revision. I completely agree with that. But it was mentioned that a hotel was a use as of by right in the hamlet, and it's not. It requires a special use permit. So the idea that anybody could buy a property in the hamlet and put a hotel on it, they have to go through the process of the planning board to get a special use permit. I'm not saying that I think that we should have hotels in the hamlet. I just want to be clear that zoning is complicated.
But they can't just put it in an application and do it.
Exactly, they can't just do it, and they can't do it without an application. In addition to the requirement of the special use permit, they have to follow the regulations for hotels. And in there, it does specify the number of guests and how many more guests you get for how many more square feet of land area, right? But they also have to follow the section on hamlets. And that section further restricts the size of buildings that are allowed. So a building in the hamlet can't be more than 3,000 square feet. And if the average hotel room is 300 square feet, that's 10 rooms in a building, right? So again, I'm not saying that these laws need to be looked at. I'm just saying that going through zoning requires looking in multiple places. It requires understanding what applies in which districts. It's not just the schedule of use. It's not just the definition. The definition is not just the section that regulates it.
Right. There's layers.
There's overlays. There's all kinds of things that go into that. And the same is true when it comes to, for example, subdivisions. And again, in the interest of doing the research in doing the research to find the information, in Clinton, we have a number of different types of subdivisions. There's a traditional subdivision, which takes a lot and divides it into the number of parcels that are allowed based on the zoning density of that area. But there's also cluster development, right, which does not do that. What cluster development does is it says, okay, here's a property that is large and has environmentally sensitive areas, but that property has a right to subdivide to the density in zoning. So cluster development allows for a property to build the equivalent number of homes intentionally in a smaller, tighter neighborhood type environment. Crimson Hill is an example of that, right? And the goal there is to protect those sensitive areas by restricting the building to the parts of the property that can be built. Unlike a subdivision, cluster development doesn't, it requires site plan approval only. So it's a whole different process, right? So again, the point just being that as we're looking through these things, and especially as we get into the next level of revisions, and I'll say this because having been on the revision committee for a number of years, we were looking at isolated revisions, and it was not common practice to go and say, oh, well, what other laws does this touch on? And I think that's a really necessary thing. How do these things tie together? How do we prevent the conflicts that exist oftentimes in one section and another section? Town of Rhinebeck just hired an attorney to go through their zoning law, and they found 100, I think it was 150 something contradictions right, to be corrected. So I think as we go forward, we can work in a better way toward resolving some of those things.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
I think Cynthia has.
Hi, I just, Paul Thomas, Willow Lane, Planning Board Chair. I just, a couple of things. In terms of the hospitality revisions that were mentioned, I think, and I understand there's going to be a draft that's going to be circulated. There was a comment earlier that, you know, we should have some kind of a workshop on that, and I think I said this at a prior meeting, and I really agree with it. That you have an open house, you can run it if you want, where people, you know, can come and talk about, you know, hotels, motels, inns, conference centers, if they're still going to exist, in a kind of general way, because we've heard a lot about Six Senses, but, you know, I think you need to know conceptually how people feel about all of these categories and how they can all be integrated into the zoning law. I really feel strongly about that because you know, our little committee talked about country inns, for example, and in a positive way, thinking that fits with our, you know, comprehensive plan. But there may be people out there who think inns are a bad idea, you know, and, you know, so I just, personally, I don't know. So I think meetings like this are really helpful. It can be just one meeting, you know, a workshop of some kind, where you just hear people's views before the final draft is put together. Because once you have a formal hearing on a law, it's already written, and there's a kind of momentum to it, and people maybe feel they can't make major revisions to it. So that's my first comment. One sort of technical thing, is there going to be a circulation of a schedule of uses? Because that is a kind of a decoder ring for all of the other zoning provisions. So I think, for example, people look at definitions and they think if it's defined in the zoning law, it's allowed. Okay, now there are definitions in there of things that are not allowed. And only if you have the schedule of uses can you determine whether it's allowed, where it's allowed, and under what conditions it's allowed, how it's approved. I just didn't see that in the drafts. Is that,
Yeah, we didn't get to that point last time, but yes, to answer your question, obviously, would have to be there. Schedule of uses would have to be
So
included.
that will be the next round.
Will it be on the public hearing for next month then, with definitions?
If it isn't, it will be.
Well, but Paul's talking about something. Paul's not talking about the definitions, right? You're talking about,
Schedule of use,
Yeah.
but will that
So
be
that's-
on
No,
next month's
no,
public
what I-
hearing?
You can have it in AR3, or you can have it in AR5, or you can have
what
it
I'm
in-
thinking is that, well, you could, I suppose. I mean, what I'm thinking is that part of the revision of this hospitality, whatever you want to call it, would include revisions to the schedule of uses. I thought that's what you were asking, in which case
Well,
I would say yes.
It's just the schedule of uses there's no draft schedule of uses in the documents that are posted. And
Oh,
so
I
if
see
you
what you-
look at
okay.
if
So
you
we'll-
look at
We'll get it.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
hotel,
Right,
it
yes.
doesn't say where the hotels are, you know, we know where they're, I mean, unless
Okay.
hasn't been changed.
I misunderstood
has-
what you were asking,
But,
yes.
you know, there's there are definitions in there, I think, of things that are actually prohibited.
Right.
If you look at a schedule of uses, but
Right.
they don't have a schedule of uses to look at.
Right, you're right, absolutely, it should be
So
there.
You really need to
Yeah, I
read.
do.
And also the area and bulk regulations as well as the schedule of
And the
uses.
bulk
Yes,
yeah.
they should be
So
there
you
too.
really need all of that. You
Yes.
need all the code. It's like, you know, Mark's Brothers thing, you need all the code books and, yeah.
Yes.
And then,
We can get those for you.
this is like a constant refrain for me, but I think when we redo these provisions, we should have a planning consultant in addition to the lawyer looking at all this, because a lot of the things that, you know, it's a big complex document, and what we've been learning is everything interacts with everything else in ways that are unpredictable. So I'm a big fan of just having, we have an excellent planner. The planning board uses an excellent planner who some people have seen in action at our meetings, but, you know, just suggesting that firm, but it can be any firm that you pick.
Is this, you mean to review the entire code?
Well, I think that might be in the next round, but I think if we're gonna redo, for example, the hospitality section.
Oh, yeah, for sure, but,
I don't think it has to be a big expensive
No.
deal. It can be just.
but it would be a big investment to have them redo the entire,
It really would, yeah.
especially since it was drawn up by Neil Wilson, who is a planner, or
That's
was.
right.
So we've already had
gotta
input
pay
from a
another
planner for the,
consultant, yeah.
I'm talking about the whole thing, not just the little piece. Little piece is fine, sure, I think that makes a great deal of
You've
sense.
got the wetlands law coming and.
Yeah,
you're
no, that's
looking at
fine,
another
but to
civil
look at the whole thing, I think would be a major expense and not very helpful.
Did you say not very helpful?
Well, I don't think it would be helpful because we,
Oh, the whole thing.
revision
The whole
No, no,
thing.
I'm not, no, I'm
yeah,
not.
exactly, okay.
This
fine.
is, this 12 years.
Yeah,
I don't think
right.
yeah,
I think-
Mike,
Yeah.
So, the next
Yes.
round, it sounds like you're gonna hire somebody and,
Sure.
in other words, get professional help.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think you all.
Okay,
you
professional
all-
help.
yeah. Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks, Paul, I think.
Professional help.
I love it.
We all need professional help.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Victoria Polidoro. Just want to thank the board for your time and consideration of the zoning amendments and your continued acknowledgement of the fairness issue. Specifically, the property that everyone keeps talking about tonight has operated as a conference center since 2003, which is longer than many of these opposition neighbors have even lived here. I just looked up the past speaker, Mr. Burnt, and he moved here in 2020. So anytime you're dealing with zoning, you know, people buy property with an expectation of rights, and you have to think very carefully before you take those rights away. So thank you for keeping that at the forefront. I do want to state that the project meets many of the town's needs as set forth in your comprehensive plan. You know, it would preserve a large expanse of open space, it preserves historic resources. So people have all sorts of opinions, but when you do zoning, you have to look at the wider goals of the community and not just a few neighbors. I was glad to hear them tonight finally admit that only a small portion of the project is going to be developed. I think that's a step in the right direction to having a fruitful discussion. Regarding Mrs. Maitland's comment about the 4 acres, she was talking about 4 acres of new development on top of the fields that have already been disturbed. So, you know, we're happy to answer questions. We're always available to meet with the public and meet with the town. We want to work with the community to move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Busy, busy.
Cynthia Cook again. I don't often come, so I have to get, my words in while I'm here. I was pulling in, to park this evening, and I looked out and I saw this little forest that's beginning to grow in our nature area off to the side of our parking lot. And that brought to mind 2 community volunteers who passed away this past March and May, Dick and Noreen Kohler. They had been part of our town, Noreen since the early 1962, I think. Raised her family here, lived in one of the oldest houses. Noreen was involved in the founding of the library when she and other women in town realized there was no place for their children to go and learn locally. And Dick, and Noreen founded, I believe, with others, the Conservation Advisory Committee. I think she also was instrumental in writing what we have in terms of our wetlands laws and a lot of the environmental regulations that have made this town the beautiful town that it is. Dick was a very great volunteer for the Historical Society, but he's probably most remembered for being one of the leaders in creating Walkway Over the Hudson. Well, I thought of them because about 20 years ago, there was a volunteer group called Clinton Watch. It was a time when the town had a lot of turmoil. And a group of citizens came together and they formed an organization, which I think led to the Scenic Roads Committee. But at any rate, Clinton Watch ultimately went out of business, and Dick had been the treasurer, and there was some money left. And he kept saying, I've got to do something with that money. And I was thinking, well, of course, give it to the Historical Society. Well, they didn't do that. And then there were other ideas I had. None of them were so good. But in the end, what they did with the money is the two of them went out shopping for trees, which is a perfect thing, and exactly what Noreen wanted to do, I'm sure. And so when you look at that little forest over by the nature area, please think of Dick and Noreen Kohler, who passed away this spring, March and May, age 88. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, I would say to add to that, my favorite walk I've ever been on, Noreen was part of it. I always think of her. So I make a motion to return to the regular order of business. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. I make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.